hijacks into our venue here. So good to see everyone. Up next is Tangela Floyd. She is right here, this beautiful lady. She is the author of the commemorative comic book, Introducing the Black Superheroes. She is also the author of Can I Speak and Jump Manya. Please join Tangela and the Readers Theater cast as they give life to Black superheroes in Introducing the Black Superheroes.
Good evening. All right. My name is Tangela Floyd again, and come on in. Doing the Black superheroes, some of you, if any of you were here at the last one, what happened was I was listening to NPR one day. We were already set to, we do different readers theaters. So we do readers theaters on women's history and on Hispanic heritage. We just do the River Speaks. We do different various readers theater. And we have a contract with the library this particular year. And this year, the national theme for the library was superheroes. So I knew I had to do something on superheroes. I had to do a readers theater also on superheroes, which was in August. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I was going to do something on superheroes. I was listening to NPR one day, and they had this show about the dedication of the home of a man named Stetson Kennedy. He was a white civil rights activist. I had never heard of him. Please, every time I say that, people hate hearing me say it, but I'm ashamed that I don't know this person. I didn't know this person's name. But I was listening to his story, and I was so inspired. And so I wasn't able to go to that dedication that Sunday, but that Monday I was there. And I told the people there, I said, I want to do a readers theater on Stetson Kennedy. And so they said that the person who's over the Stetson Kennedy Foundation, her name is Sandra Parks Kennedy, his widow. And she wasn't there at the time, but they gave her my message. And 2 weeks later we met. And as inspired as I was about the story of Stetson Kennedy, she was even more inspired than I was. I mean, when I met with her, she had already had a full-page agenda for us to go through. So, which is wonderful because I like that kind of stuff. But anyway, as she was talking, she said, well, you know that the African Americans had their own Black superheroes. And I said, wow. So I just immediately knew what I was going to do for superheroes for the library in August. But in the 1930s, the federal government saw that the African American slaves were dying off. And they wanted to record their firsthand history and stories about their time in slavery. So they created the Federal Writers Project. And in Florida, the man Stetson Kennedy was put over the Florida Project. And Zora Neale Hurston reported to Stetson Kennedy, and she was housed, they housed them in what they call the Negro unit, because of course at that time everything was separate, and they were housed in the Clear White Mission. And so anyway, I was so inspired by the Black superheroes. I said, you know, that's what I'm going to do for the library in August. And we also did an accompanying commemorative comic book called Introducing the Black Superheroes. You can lift. Here's our eye candy. He's our eye candy. All right. So don't look at him. Look at the comic book. But no. But that's what we did. Introducing the Black Superheroes, and it commemorates 10 of the superheroes. And I'm just giving a little bit more history. There were no women in the superheroes. They were all men. Okay, now of course, for me, I am a woman. I am very adamant that there has to be women. So I said, no matter what, I want to do 10 characters, and at least 3 have to be women. So what I did was, first of all, I added Big Mama Gertrude, because from slavery time even to today, there's always a Big Mama. Big Mama is the woman who takes care of the children. She's the older person who takes care of the children while the mothers and the fathers worked in the fields. And even to today, while the mothers and fathers work, there's a Big Mama. So that's something throughout the African American culture. I also added Princess Kataka, and that's based on Anna Kingsley. if you heard of Kingsley Plantation. And it's thought that she was from Senegal, and it's thought that she was a Senegalese princess. So we have because you gotta have a princess. You have a princess. And then there's Mama Duck. Now Mama Duck is actually one of the slaves who gives her narrative of slavery. And they call her Mama Duck because she talks incessantly. So those were the three, and what I do is say, well, the reason she talks so much is because she has this photographic memory. And if you know, not all people, but a lot of people who have photographic memories, part of their issues sometimes is they have problems with filtering what details to tell people. So I said that's why she talks incessantly. So I added 3 women that are derived from the Library of Congress and Stetson Kennedy's Palmetto Country. In next year, it was supposed to be in February, but I've been asked to see if we can push it to April. We're going to do a graphic novel based on these 10 characters. And the novel, they're trying to push me to do it in April for one part. But anyway, it's coming next year. We're going to do a graphic novel based on those 10 characters. So we're just going to do a few excerpts from the superheroes. We're going to start on page 20, John the Conqueror. Now, John the Conqueror is one of those strange superhero stories. John is clairvoyant and can uncover people's innermost secrets. But some folks say it's all just a trick. That he don't actually have superpowers to see in the future and read people's minds.
Well, I'm here to say I believe he's clairvoyant. I think he can see the future. I think he can read people's minds. I don't care what nobody says. One night, John came to the slave quarters and told us,
tomorrow we kills whole.
how you know that?
I can tell fortunes, that's how.
Then the next day, old master came out and told us there was going to be a big hog killing.
Most of us decided right then that John was a fortune teller for truth.
Yeah, but some of us think John was just at the big house, listening to what old master was saying and talking about. Some think that's how he learned about what was going to happen. They say he heard old master say he was going to kill the hogs the next day, and John just came back and told us what he heard old master say.
Well, what about the time mistress lost her ring?
Oh, master, I know where that ring is.
Old master promised John. He said, if you can find that ring, he'd give him a present, a fine, fat young pig.
Master, look here. You kill that turkey, you find your ring.
Now first, old master he won't kill his prize gobbler. But then he killed that turkey. There's that ring.
From then on, old master thought John was a fortune teller too.
Yeah, but Pete said that he and John was hanging around the back door at the big house, and that they saw the mistress throw the water out of the wash basin, and they saw her diamond ring in that basin. But before they could pick it up, a turkey gobbler gobbled it down, and that's how John knew.
Well, Pete can't stand John the Conqueror. Pete done lied on John and a lot of other people in the past. You just can't put anything past him and trust anything he says.
Well, then what about the time that old master was bragging on one of his friends that John could tell fortunes? Master and his friend bet their whole plantation on whether or not John could tell fortunes. Now the other betting man had the privilege of deciding what the proof was gonna be.
So John was led away. Then they brought him back and showed him a great big old black iron wash pot turned upside down. They asked him what was under it. John didn't say anything for a long while, and then he said,
You got the old coon?
Old master threw his head up in the air and let out a whoop. Everybody was yelling with surprise because that is what was under that pot, a big old coon.
Yeah, but even though I can't prove it, I think John didn't know the answer, because it took him a long while to say something. I think when he said, you got the old coon, I think he just gave up and was talking about himself. And it just so happened under that pot.
Well, I don't care what you say. John the Conqueror can see into the future.
Yes, he can.
And he can uncover people's innermost secrets. Hey, I believe in you, John.
Whatever. Page 26. Alright. We're going to do Abada the Warrior. Abada the Warrior is, back in slavery time, they used to have slaves where they fought each other or fought other people. And it was based on Mandingos, the Mandingo slave who were, a lot of them were knuckle box fighters. And so Tom Molyneux, he was the first black person to fight a white person. They did it in England in 1810, and so he made history in that way. So Abada the Warrior is based on him, but the story is based on Abada the Warrior himself is based on him, but one of the stories that we're telling is just based on a slave that had escaped at the time. He didn't have to escape because he actually was given his freedom by his master. So this is sort of a derivation. Go ahead.
One time, one of Master Stokes' slaves ran away. Now, some derivations on the slave narratives call this slave Abada the Warrior. Well, Master Stokes sent the Negro dogs to catch him. Negro dogs was dogs that went after runaway slaves. And this slave had a head start on the dogs that was trailing him.
He hid around some floating logs in a long river. The dogs trailed him in the river and started howling. That means they're getting close to their prey.
But those dogs disappeared. The next scene of them was their dead bodies floating up on the water of that river. They had been killed by that slave Abada. There was about 50 full-blooded hounds used to hunt escaped slaves. That slave escaped and was never seen on our plantation again. I couldn't understand it. And the other slaves, they just couldn't understand it either. How Abada could stand those icy waters of the river. But he made it.
My name is Abada. They call me Abada the Warrior. Come here. I'm gonna tell you a secret. The reason I was able to survive those cold and icy waters out there is because I can shape shift.
Yes.
I can go in from human to water and ice. I can even turn into fire. They ain't know that. Now, I never did go back to Master Stokes' plantation. And secretly, I even used my powers to help some slaves escape over to the Ohio River on their journey as they were going up north. I can shape shift. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man's coming for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd.
Page 4. So, so one of the things that we use is follow the drinking gourd. And back in slavery time, I'm sorry, page 4, boy. Back in slavery time, the drinking gourd represented, it was a path that it was like a map that helped the slaves to escape through the Ohio River. And so the song itself was to actually throw off the masters and, so the other people wouldn't know what they were talking about. But they would sing that song so they could memorize what path they needed to take for freedom. And there were people along the Underground Railroad who helped them to escape. And so, I love that song. So I've incorporated that too throughout the writing. Okay, we have a few more minutes. We're going to do one more. Since we have new people, let's do Daddy Mitchell. Page 9. I know you're going to stick me, but I'm still okay, Daddy Mitchell. Daddy Mitchell was a Negro convict. And the reason this is important because we talked about it last session was that black people were targeted to be arrested. And it was a law that if they did not have a job, you could arrest them. And then they would go to jail and work in the turpentine. They go to jail and they would have them work on the turpentine camps or farms or different things like that. So it was still, even though they weren't in the plantation slavery, they were still in the forms of slavery. And even if you listen to some of the stories today, you'll know there's still slavery even today especially what's happening with some of the Hispanic, those persons working on farms that are even going on now. So anyway, Daddy Mention was a Negro convict who could outrun the longest shotgun. They had him locked up for vagrancy. He tried to tell him he'd be glad to go to work if only he could find a job.
Now you know the colored man can't say much in Polk County. Now, they gave Daddy Mention 90 days in Lakeland jail. You see, Daddy Mention had set his mind on escaping to Tampa, but they'd sooner shoot you than go to all the trouble of trying to catch you. Even if you got away, they would send the hounds to catch up with you. I mean, those hounds would come running, even before you can get the mulberry.
Now, Daddy Mention knew he had to have a better plan. He decided to chop a tree down all by himself, and it didn't take but one more man to help him tow it to the pile. Then, one day, when he was sure Captain was watching him, he picked the tree up all by himself and carried it all the way to the pile before he put it down. The captain couldn't hardly believe his own eyes. Then, Captain called up the guards over to see Daddy do that again.
Got to be a regular sign to see Daddy Mention walk around the jail yard carrying a big old training on. Everybody was used to seeing it by then. And that was just what Daddy Mention wanted. After supper, most of the captains and guards was around the yard, and they watched while Daddy picked up that big old tree. He started walking toward the gate with a log on his shoulder. None of the guards didn't bother him, because nobody thought a man would try to escape with a log on his shoulders.
You know, you had to pass the guards' quarters before you get to the gate. But Daddy Mention didn't even turn around as he passed. The guards at the gate must have thought that one of the captains had sent Daddy Mention to take the log somewhere or was making a bet or something. Right on out the gate, Daddy Mention went with a log on his shoulder, heading for Tampa.
I just kept that log on my shoulder. Everybody I passed thought it must have fell off the truck and I was headed back, but I just kept rolling. I knew they thought nobody would have the nerve to take a log and go walking, a good pine log, and walking down the highway like that. As soon as I got to Plant City, I took that log right on over to the wood yard and I sold it. Had me enough money to ride to Tampa. You know what? Ain't nobody ever gonna catch me setting foot in Polk County no more.
So that's Daddy Mention. And we have just one more minute. So DC, we're going to talk about this in the next hour. Stetson Kennedy actually went undercover with the KKK. And he got some of their signs and a lot of things that they had done, and he went to the FBI with his story to let them know what was going on. And then he eventually went to the nation to let them know what was going on. And he helped to actually bring down the KKK at the time. DC Comics actually did a series on Superman battles the KKK. So even they were inspired by the story. And that helped inspire me even more as well. So thank you, I appreciate you coming out today.
Alright, so with some of these abilities that they have, are they based on the actual folklore, or there's some of them you have to add in?
Some of them are derivations, so like Roy and the Black Falcon. So Roy was a master mechanic, but to be a master mechanic, that means you have to have really good knowledge of technology as well. So so I've added, he's a master of technology, and when I build on it, it's going to be technology included as a master mechanic as well. So yeah, so it's like derivations too, whatever their superpower was.
And like High John the Conqueror is, if you know anything about, I've done some anthropological research and history, African American history, and in the South there's a lot of those traditions about the hoodoo workers or workers, witch doctors, that kind of thing. Well, High John the Conqueror had always been based off of a John character in the Bible, but supposedly there were those who were like High Johns who were on plantations that slaves would go to for help.
Absolutely.
For different things that
Absolutely.
they needed.
And this John, actually, and let's say in the slave narratives, John himself, they didn't believe that he was a foreteller. So I did a play off, like, some people believe, some believe, they didn't believe. So I just showed both aspects. And because in the end, I'm going to make him be able to tell the truth. So I wouldn't have to say.
Also, what inspired you to decide to tell these stories through the comics medium?
Okay, because we had to do something on superheroes anyway, with the library. So I just said, oh, we gotta have a comic book to go with it, you know, because superhero stories, a lot, and plus, we do readers theater as well, and children and adults like comic books. So it's
Right.
another way to tell a story, you know, so and when I'm going to do a regular novel as well, and then the graphic novel, that's based on a comic book, because I think we should really bring those types, do it differently, because some things appeal to other people. You're learning about history or derivation of history, because I'm going to do one that's pure history, and then I want to do some fantasy. I'm going to actually do two, so we can have a fantasy one too as well. But you're actually learning history, and some people like comic books better. And if that's the way that you prefer to learn, this is for you. You know, and so you want different mediums to appeal to different people.
Cool. And I guess the other question is, did you approach the illustrator for the idea of the
Oh yeah,
how did that go?
the illustrator. Oh, he's wonderful. I'm sorry, Brian Oakley. He he's a professor at the Art Institute in Jacksonville, and he is wonderful. Oh my God, I mean, and me, I have this type of imagination, so I can actually draw a little bit, but it was just not my thing. I want to focus on this. So it was wonderful. I was able to show him exactly what I wanted, and from the internet, like I want my character doing this, and I want, you know, I want them dressed like this a little bit, so I can give him the ideas of what I wanted, and he interpreted me very well. He just wanted to work with, so he will work with me on the
Right. So has he done the comics illustrations before? Or is it
He
his
has not,
first
I mean,
attempt?
it's part of his job to actually do illustrations, so he does do that, but he has not done what I asked him to do. So this is actually his coming out as well.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And he's great, he's wonderful. Okay, I'm sorry, they're cutting me off here.
Okay.
All right. But if you have any questions, we're here. The comic book is $5, so if you want to support, please support. Thank you.